I have, like I said, I got Jaren Jackson Jr. All NBA, All Defensive combo awards this season. I'm buying all the Jaren Jackson Jr. Stock offensively with Ja not there. I think he's gonna take a step offensively. That's gonna because otherwise there's nothing there.
Yeah.
I think he can take less of a defensive responsibility next year. Because one of the reasons he won Defensive Player of the Year, obviously he's great. He's probably the best overall shot blocker in the NBA because of athleticism, length, ability to do it on help side and straight up and
Yeah.
right that way. But and is a funnel defense. Especially with the steps back that Rudy Gobert has taken this last year. But
Yeah.
I mean, with a guy like Marcus Smart coming in, being able to take some of that switch responsibility is going to let him have more energy for the offensive end. And Steven Adams coming back, and a lot, like I said, like I was saying, but like a lot of the reason he won the DPOY last year was when Steven Adams went down, he had to move to the 5, and he was doing everything. He was doing everything on defense as the only real big man on the roster because Brandon Clark tore his Achilles.
Yep.
And he was the only real big man on the roster that was in the rotation. But before that, and I mean, it's like they're getting down to their third or fourth big, and it's like Xavier Tillman is now playing like real.
Xavier Tillman, David Roddy.
Yeah.
At the 5. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it's gross. It's like next year, he's not going to have to do that. I think there's a reason that Memphis was careful with Steven Adams. Brandon Clark probably won't play this for most of the year.
I don't think he's going to play at all.
Yeah, he probably won't play at all because the Achilles can take up to, it's usually about a 10-month recovery for the actual surgery. But in basketball, you put a lot of stress on the Achilles, and they're going to be a playoff team. So it's not like he can come back at the end of the year and just kind of go out there and mess around. So he probably won't play this year.
Yeah.
But Xavier Tillman looked good towards the end of the year, especially in the playoffs. He had that crazy good game in the playoffs. But
against LA, right?
Yeah, he was like, remember there was a game where he was just giving Anthony Davis buckets.
I do remember that. Yeah.
It was hilarious. That was a funny game. But but like if Xavier Tillman can be serviceable, David Roddy is going to play more. Stuff like that. You obviously have that type of development, and someone's gonna need to take a step forward. Desmond Bane as well. We've talked about in our shooting guards episode. He's gonna have to take a step offensively in the creation role, but Jaren Jackson Jr. All NBA is mostly offense, but if you're a two-way player and you're doing both at a good level and one at an extremely high level, like he will be, all NBA voters reward that. So I wouldn't be surprised. I'm definitely buying the stock on that.
I don't think I'm as on board as you are, maybe with Jaren's leap, especially offensively. I don't know why, but I've always had my reserves with Jaren Jackson Jr. on the offensive side of the ball. I think kind of in people's head a lot of the times they kind of envision him as a better scorer than he actually might be in real life. 18 points per game is pretty solid. Like a lot of players are never going to reach that, but for like a number 2 star like that to only average less than 20, like last year, I can't really see him averaging maybe what he needs to keep the Grizzlies like to be a really good team in those games without Ja. And I think obviously the offensive responsibility that Ja leaves in his absence has to go somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of what we were talking about with Desmond Bane in the shooting guards episode, how much better can he really get right now to fill much of that gap?
I think where you really look for it is throughout the season. And I think it's similar to what you were talking about with Jaden McDaniels. But throughout the season, he was more willing to create, especially in post touches. He wasn't so scared to drive off of his catch and shoot opportunities. And I think he's going. My thought process in this is he doesn't have a choice. Someone has to take those shots. Someone needs to create, especially rim pressure, because there needs to be some sort of scoring. And they're playing now. He's going to be playing alongside Marcus Smart.
Yep.
Who is going to play? He's going to have a lot of cleanup defensive plays. That's what he does. He's a cleanup defensive player. He's tough. But on the offensive end, he can be a shooter. He can score at somewhat of a level. He's willing to self-create, sometimes to a negative aspect.
Yeah.
But he can do it, and it's not horrible. But at the same time, he can also distribute the ball. And I think he'll be not to a high level, not to like a play like point level, but he can, and he's willing to do it.
That's what I was about to say. Like he can kind of set the table for other players on that end of the ball, but like, I mean, Ja Morant is one of the best playmakers in the NBA, and you take that away from this team, like 25 games, obviously isn't 82, but 25 games, you're looking at like a third of the season,
and it's all in a row.
It's all in a row.
Yeah.
So 25 games is significant, right? Yeah. So, and especially with how tightly packed these standings have been in the last few years, like those games really matter. So without Ja Morant leaves a scoring gap, but he also leaves a pretty big playmaking gap too. Yeah. That the rest of the Grizzlies players aren't going to be able to kind of feed off of on offense the same way they used to be. So
I can agree. I really am hopeful for the way that his game developed. And I think he can also take a playmaking step. I think he understands court movement because of how good of a defender he is. And he understands an inside out game. And if they're looking, and I think the coaching staff as a whole, their coach's name is completely
Taylor Jenkins.
Taylor Jenkins. Yes. If Taylor Jenkins is he has to have someone do it. And they're going to have to experiment. That's what it comes down to. They're going to have to play in a way that they've never had to play before. They don't have a true distributor on the team anymore. Tyus Jones is not there. Ja Morant's not going to play the first 25 games. They're going to have to experiment. They're going to have to get creative. And Jaren's going to step. And if he does, I have no problem seeing that will occur.
Yeah, I think it can. But yeah, if it does, like it's really gonna come on the hinges of him embracing that inside out game, truly, because Jaren Jackson, kind of in his early years in the NBA, was labeled as a stretch four pretty early on. Which to give him some credit, he can space the floor a little bit. Like you can't really. You aren't going to feel that very good about leaving him completely open in the corner.
You can't leave him open, but
you can't leave him open. But the aesthetics of his jump shot are really bad.
Yeah.
And that's obviously not.
He's got that Halliburton jump shot.
He does have the Halliburton jump shot, except he his body jumps forward and his back is all the way. I don't know. It's an ugly jump shot. It goes in sometimes, but if that volume on that 3-pointer were to go up, I'm pretty confident the percentages would go down.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I think if Jaren were to really embrace that inside-out game, more post-up opportunities, more cuts, he can get there for sure.
Which is going to be available. It's going to be available because Ja's not going to be playing at the rim. He's not going to be the rim presence that there was last year.
Yeah, and I hate to keep on hating on Jaren, I guess, if you will call it that, but also if those foul trouble issues don't show up, I think there could be some issues there, because if Jaren isn't available for the games because he gets into foul trouble, I think the Grizzlies' offense will completely die out.
Yeah. Well, and last year he was better with it. He took a step at getting better with it last year, and I think he'll take another step this year. As his defense, as his jump happiness kind of goes down. And also he's coming into the season fully healthy this year. He missed a lot of games at the beginning of the season.
That. You're right.
Yeah.
I forget that.
And he's had a full healthy offseason, to put on muscle and not rehab. So, there could definitely be a step there.